Hey guys, we're going to use the microphone because we do have a few people on live that are joining us and listening in. I think I know all of you. Denise Rehner. My son has a mutation in the GRIN1 gene. We started 3.5 years ago and had just been blown away by the support. So we thought we would just open up a conversation just about fundraising in general, how we pay for these treatments and cures. Most of us know that there's no government funding to pay for this, and so unfortunately it is up to mostly us as families and friends and families, and it's always truly incredible to see like the support that the newly diagnosed families get. I'm sure a lot of us are in the same boat where when we first get our new diagnosis, there's almost like this processing time, this initial shock. Sometimes if you have a network of friends and family that have been kind of watching your struggles through for a while, for a few years or less, when you finally have a diagnosis, there is a bit of a shock period where not only for you to process, but also where your friends and family want to do something to help. Like you finally have an answer to, your kid is missing milestone, and maybe you have friends that are having children around the same age too, and they know that they're watching you struggle with your kid. And when you finally have some type of diagnosis, it's so incredible to see how so many people rally behind you, around you, and want to do something to help. Essentially, that's why we started the GRI-Insider monthly discussions to get the newly diagnosed people.
You lost your speaker. Why that is in this one, so I'm gonna.
Anyway, so so we do a couple of different peer-to-peer campaigns. We talked about earlier, the November has always been our big end of year push, and have had some amazing success. Like it's always really exciting to see the families that sign up, and then the ones that really take off and are really out there, like raising the money, raising a lot of money. And I know you guys, like I was blown away by the Clarks. I think you did our first Get Moving right in the pandemic, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you did, and you want to pass the microphone. I think it's on.
Well, I love running, so it was an easy one for me. So what I decided to do was be a part of the campaign. Be a part of the campaign. And my goal was to run an ultramarathon every week. It turned out that we actually only had half the month because we went on holiday for the other half of the month. And so in the 2 weeks that I did have the time to do it, I ran every day with my daughter in the running buggy, made sure that I ran with her for every run, and ran about 85, 90 Ks each week. And my friends. So and our friends and family were amazing at supporting us. I think we raised about £3,500 or something just from doing that, which was great.
And so you were able to share your posts about what you were doing and milestone. So, did you post every day?
Yeah, I posted every day on Facebook, and just kept everyone updated as to what I was doing, and always took a photo halfway around my run. We were very lucky to live next door to a beautiful park, so it was like a 2K run to the park, and then a really, depending on how far I ran every day, either a 6K loop, a 12K loop. So I was around about I don't know, 15Ks, 10 to 15Ks a day is what I was running. So yeah, it was brilliant. But that's, I love running. And I think my aim for either next year or the year after, as you know, we're wanting to set up a foundation in the UK for this. And the way I would raise money personally myself would be to do extreme running events. So MDS, the Marathon del Saab, it's the one in the desert. That's kind of my goal to do next. Wow. Got to do these crazy things, because running a marathon, I've done 20 of them, and it's so I've got to make sure that it's more than just running a marathon, because it's a challenge, obviously, but not one I feel I can ask people for money for, because I've done so many of them. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah.
How many miles is that people out to do that about every day?
Yeah, about 50. Yeah,
50 miles a week.
Yeah. 85K. Yeah, kind of.
Did you kind of publicly announce your? Did you publicly announce your kind of running goals at the onset of the fundraising campaign? So you kind of.
I kind of said that the goal was to run an ultramarathon a week. And had I been in the UK for the entire time, I would have carried on doing it for the remaining 2 weeks. But we went away, and it wasn't really conducive to running, because I like my wine too much.
I understand. Kaitlyne, you were also, it was the Get Moving, your first campaign. Yep. You want to talk about that?
All right, I'm Kaitlyne. So our son has GRIN-1, and he was diagnosed in December 2020, and then we did our first Get Moving in July 2021. It was during COVID too, so we hadn't really told many people what was going on besides our really close friends and family. And before we even had our son, we said, we're not posting him on Facebook, mom and dad. Like, we don't want to do all that kind of thing. And then we realized that we had to be part of the solution with CureGRIN, because he's so young, and we really want to help so that there's a cure in his lifetime. That we put a big Facebook post together right when July started and said that we were really going to commit to the Get Moving for GRI event. So I think we also had a lot of friends that had just had kids around the same age as our son. So I think people really understood and felt for us. So that first year we got a ton of support, like way more than we expected to. And I think we tried posting between me, my husband, and my parents and in-laws and aunts and uncles. We kind of did one post a week of a picture of Miles, and then just saying thank you and something inspirational or something about him. And we were just really surprised. We didn't do the next fundraiser in November because we didn't want to hit people up twice. We did do like the Giving Tuesday, just because I felt like that was okay. And then this past year we did the Get Moving for GRI again. We didn't think we'd get as much money just because it was the first year before, and it was the first time we told people about it. So I actually reached out to my work last year for the first time and kind of put myself out there again and told people about it, because people at work really didn't know, except for my close colleagues. And my work actually sponsored the event, and they actually sent it out to, like, we're a big company, and they sent it out to other locations. So like our New York, our Connecticut office and everything. I'm from Mass. And they made an event at work. So there was people tracking their hours, and they all donated. So like a lot of my donations from last year actually came from work, because I'm trying to look for other avenues of asking for money, because I don't want to always have to hit up friends and family, even though they've been really great about it. So that's just something that we've tried, and we're coming up on our third year. So like, I just don't know how it's going to go this year, but we're always constantly trying to think of different events that we as a family can do that's more local and we can get our friends and family involved in. Last year we did, we partnered with the Professional Lacrosse League, and we did an event. It didn't pan out how we had hoped it did, but we're trying different things. So
Berni, you are a veteran and for many, many, many years, and tell us about your whole experience.
Yeah.
First of all, I worked for the YMCA for 23 years. And if you work for the YMCA, fundraising is part of your job. So I was the VP of HR, but fundraising was part of my job. So it wasn't something that I wasn't used to. But raising money for your own child is different. And this is emotional. My brother, Chris, was turning 50 and he decided he was going to run a marathon for his 50th birthday. And he said, well, if I'm going to expend that much effort, I'm going to have to do it for something, because just running isn't going to do it for me. So we started Tristan's Run. And we raised initially, Tristan predates GRIN by a lot of years. He wasn't diagnosed till he was 19 and a half. So we initially raised money for Children's Hospital because he was diagnosed at age 3 with an underlying mitochondrial myopathy. And that's where the money was going, into research. At CHOP, we raised $125,000 over the years. We have done a Tristan's Run every year. He was born around Thanksgiving. The Philadelphia Marathon is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And for years, we had my brother Chris, nephews, nieces, friends of friends, friends of daughters and sons who would come in from out of town and run just on Sunday so that they could help raise money. In the ensuing years, they've had babies and lives, and the running has not been as big of an issue, but we still do Tristan's Run every year, and we've done it virtually. And it converted pretty much over to an email campaign. And when we found GRIN, we've moved it over to GRIN. So far, we've raised a little over $15,000. We do Tristan's Run once a year in November around his birthday. And through the year, if there's a special event or something that we're doing, we will sometimes raise money through that. During March, I've done thank you posts to individuals who have helped Tristan through the years. And not every day, but every once in a while, I put his Tristan's Run website on the bottom of it, and we get money. It's, some people just find it. The one thing that I probably found that was the most helpful is just what you said, Kaitlyne. Expand your network. When we raised the money for CHOP, it was mostly family, and then it was family's friends. I went to an all-girls school, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them. We only had 76 in the classroom, so it wasn't that big. But I expanded to include them, and they send money. So if you have an alumni association, if your child goes to a school, have the school see if they can start a run for your child or an event for your child and raise money for it. Finding networks of people that are out of the box so that you're not going to the same people all the time is probably the easiest way to raise money. No one likes asking for money. It especially gets harder when your child isn't a child anymore and he's not as cute and lovable. That's not you, bud. But, as kids age out of being cute and cuddly, raising money for kids who still have the disorder, even though they're not cute and cuddly anymore, gets harder. So expanding the network really helps to have the kitty.
You've participated. Yeah. All these years.
Hi, I'm Tristan's sister, and I also work in nonprofit and have done fundraising because I grew up at the Y, and so being the child of a YMCA employee means your job is fundraising. But I think what Kaitlyne was speaking on at your company is really important, because engaging, at least in the US, I can't speak to other countries, but in the US, most corporations will match donations. And that's a great way to multiply your gifts, is to get your donors to reach out to their employees and get employer gifts, because that's just easy money. Beyond that, it really is expanding. The nonprofit I work with, we do community fundraising. And so it is all about using your community and all about figuring out different ways, because we have people who don't have communities. And then where do you, kids in school, churches are huge, and then just writing stories is fantastic. But I mean, we were lucky in that what she's leaving out is we have a very large family. So we had a community built in. So that helped immediately. But beyond that, I will definitely double down on the fact that, as you know, we're all going to come into the fact that fundraising is definitely going to be at its easiest at time of diagnosis, at time of crisis. And then what do you do after that? The constituencies I work with have lifelong disorders, lifelong injuries, and we have those conversations all the time where you're doing the same fundraiser year after year after year after year. So what do you do? Some people turn it into an annual fundraiser. Maybe you don't do a lot of little ones throughout the year. You do an annual fundraiser. You just find those out of the box. We have one flyer of a woman who did a fundraiser that was donate twice your shoe size. It's like just being super creative with your fundraising. What's going to actually make someone read your flyer? That's important.
Now hold it.
Lauren, you've participated for all these years. What's been your most successful or memorable thing about fundraising? What have you found? Have you been surprised by anybody?
No, because I have a lot of people who support me, and so it was expected, honestly.
She let them know.
I'm not. I have a lot of support. I'm very, very grateful and thankful for the support that Carter and I have to be able to do what we do. So it wasn't completely unexpected, but I noticed, just like all of you said, at time of diagnosis is when we were the most successful. And then as it goes on in your community, if you don't expand it, it becomes harder and harder. It doesn't matter. Carter is cute and cuddly. You heard me? Yeah. Okay. He is cute and cuddly. It doesn't matter, especially when people see him progressing. It's harder for me to make them understand that that doesn't mean that he won't die. Like, I know that sounds terrible and morbid, but it's still a fact. And regardless of how he looks, we're here for the whole community. And this goes to all the GRIs, right? And I think what's been the most successful to me is being able to show the results of what we've done with the money. So the projects that we're investing in, the ambassador program, how we've been able to gather these clinicians and resources from countries around the world, globally, connect with all these families around the world is so important. And how we're changing the face of GRI. And I think that's what people want to see. This is what my money's doing. This is what it's going towards. And that's what's been successful for me. And maybe that's a Southern thing. And that's what we like. Like, I worked for United Way for 10 years before I joined CureGRIN. So I have a lot of fundraising experience. And that's what I've learned, that especially if you approach like a major donor who's going to be in the millions, you want to know what their passion is. And you want to know what they want to do with their money. So here are these projects that we're funding. What do you like the most? What do you see that's interesting that could change the face of GRI and of our kids?
Something you said just hit my brain. And that is, the other thing is that we always tend as the parents to put a good face on it. You know, we post all the happy things that happen. And every once in a while, as you say, when you see the progression and people see the progression, they forget about the daily life and they forget about the what ifs. I find that every once in a while, and it's people's human nature, when I remind them about what Tristan's daily life looks like and what all our kids' daily lives look like, it ain't all Skittles and chips. And that tends to reach them sometimes, because, you know, when you show all the nice things they're doing and all the places they get to go and the things that they're doing with successes, because we do have some, people forget that there's still a crisis at hand and it can happen any minute. And every day is a crisis some days. They don't know that, you know, he's been in the hospital 12 times this year. They don't know that he has 27 doctors that he has to go to on an annual basis. So just reminding them that, yes, there are successes and we're very proud of those, and We hope to see more down the road. But it's not Skittles and chips. It's a crawl to the race. It's not a run. So.
So one thing was, I know Heather reached out to some people about fundraising and asking, why do you not fundraise, or what are your fears with fundraising? And a lot of people said that they were afraid that they weren't going to make any money if they did fundraising, which I didn't like putting it out there and asking people for money, because it's never ever something I ever did before. But I remember just being amazed by like people I went to high school with, parents that I saw in high school, like the most random people sent money, but they also reached out, which was really, really nice to get. So I think if you're nervous about doing it, you're going to be really surprised by who does reach out and who does donate. And they're going to share it. They may share a story that you never even would have expected them to know, somebody that has something similar, gone through a similar situation. And every little bit really does help. Even if you raise $5 or $10, you're also spreading awareness, and hopefully that will help further on. Or maybe you'll be surprised and raise a bunch of money and you'll realize that you can be a part of helping with all of this. So that's just my 2 cents on that, if you're nervous about doing it.
Yeah. And I'll say this is somebody who's a senior fundraiser. I've done this for years. I still get nervous. It's still awkward. I don't like doing it. It's not the most fun thing and fun part of this. But what Denise and I have talked about this thoroughly, people want to be asked. Like, regardless of how awkward you feel about it, or how weird it is, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm have to provide them so much information. No, people want to be asked. They want you to come to them, right? And they want to feel important. I thought about you, and I know how much you love Carter, and I know that you want more for our kids, and they want to be asked.
I worked with a woman at the YMCA. My daughter is friends with their daughters. Her son passed away 10 years ago. Year before last, she saw one of my posts on Facebook and sent $500 in honor of her son. You never know who you're going to touch and why you're going to touch them.
Yep.
Robin, you've done some different type of fundraising, right? Did you sell a product, or?
Yeah.
First, you're from Australia?
Yeah. Sorry, I'd love to take the mask off, but I've got a bit of a cough, so we'll just keep it on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Robin from Australia. My daughter Imogen is 17. She was diagnosed with GRIA-2 in November 2021, so not very long ago. I'm not a natural fundraiser at all. It gives me anxiety. But we did do a fundraiser. The only other one we've done before was because obviously she's always had epilepsy, so we fundraised for that. I don't know, about 7 years ago, we did where we live, there's a run, and it's a city to bay, and you can raise money through that, and we raised $5,000, which we couldn't believe. We put a target of 1,000 and it went to 5, so that was massive. We couldn't believe it. Anyway, so we've just sort of, been busy and all the rest of it, and recent diagnosis, and thought, okay, to do this. But I felt really funny about doing like a GoFundMe or any sort of thing where I'm asking for money, because I don't know, in Australia at the moment, they're just everywhere. Like, I feel like every second person's setting something up and asking for money for something. And because it's going to sound terrible, but like our GRI disorders, nobody knows about them. So unless they know my child, they're not really going to care. Whereas if you're raising for cancer or something like that, it's something that's touched everyone. So, they're happy to donate. So I sort of thought, I was talking to my daughter's occupational therapist and said, I need to come up with something to do for fundraising. And she said, oh, we've done something recently for my son's soccer, and it went really well. It was selling wine. And I went, oh, I love wine. And anyway, it was a bit of a rush. It was the perfect time. It was coming up to Christmas. And I think I will do it again because everyone has asked me if I would. But I'll give myself a bit more time. But it's a bit different because when you're asking for actual donations, like you're getting $20 and $50 and $100 or whatever, adds up quick. Whereas if you're selling a bottle of wine, you're only getting a tiny little bit per bottle. So it looked like we were going nowhere. And plus, people need to be reminded that this is the last date to get your orders in, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, all these orders came in. And the fact that the company that does it for their business, they sell the bottle. I don't know how they get these bottles of wine, but they're selling them cheaper that you can buy them in the shop. And they were good wines, like they were good local, they weren't just crappy ones. And people knew the brands and they were happy to order them. And they package it all up, they mail it out, or they'll, if people want to save on postage, they sent it to me and I delivered them. And all of a sudden this ute load of wine just came along. And yeah, so we ended up making $1,000, which I know isn't heaps, but I just wanted people to get something for their donation, and people are happy to do that if they know they're ordering something for a good cause and it's Christmas. So they're, it kind of worked. So yeah, lots of people have said, "Are you going to do that again?" And I will. So yeah, that's it.
Any time looking at like the most successful charities out there? If you spend any time looking at the most successful charities out there that have raised millions and millions, and anything that can be learned from them, how they've been successful?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we certainly have some rare diseases. There are some like larger organizations that have been successful, like Reverse Red, Angelmans, yeah. And ultimately, it boils down to the family fundraising just here.
You did a talk, you did a Zoom call with some of the different rare disease, similar organizations. I mean, I have a lot of voice, but okay. That thing. He did a Zoom call with some of the rare disease organizations. They talked about their fundraising, and all of them said, I'm not sure how many he talked to, all of them said that when we would think that it's grants and things like that that keep them stable, it's not, it's family fundraising. So I guess because you would consider us still to be a baby organization, we're not old at all. I mean, this is the first official CureGRIN conference we put so much effort into. So I think we have a long way to go, but the ones that are similar organizations to us, they do things like Angelman's does the walk for Angelman's. And what we hope to start is what they do is regional meetups for their walk. And so we're hoping with our ambassador program to do the same thing. So whoever's an ambassador in those states, we have almost all the states covered in the US. We have most countries covered with ambassadors. Robin's an ambassador, if you're in Australia. And we hope to do local or regional meetups for that to raise more money for Get Moving for GRI.
And I also know Tristan was diagnosed with Angelman's when he was 4 years old, so they've been around a long time. And he was diagnosed with Rett when he was 7 years old, so they've been around a long time. So sometimes it's the length of time that it takes a small organization to get to that point that where we are right now, and that's the hard thing, and it's difficult. A lot of the large donors, Disney is one that I'm familiar with. It's by invitation only. And I was saying to somebody earlier, we're not on their invitation list yet, but I would think that we're going to apply time after time after time after time. And they're either going to get tired of seeing our name, or when they have some money left over, they're going to give us something. And sometimes that's how it is. You send applications in, you send letters in over and over and over again. And suddenly there's someone in that organization who recognizes your disorder or has somebody who has that disorder, and you move to the top of the list. So,
yeah, I would add to that most board of directors, most organizations with a board, fundraising development is a big part of that role. And because we're a rare disease organization, we feel it's important for our board to be consistent of families and family members that have a connection to GRI, either a child or a grandchild. But that is something that we're considering changing in our bylaws. That does a person necessarily have to have a GRIN family member, or would we be open to somebody who doesn't have necessarily a specific relative, but has an interest and a passion for our disease? But ultimately, you know, Berni hinted at, it comes down to connections, and that ultimately was what a board member, a big part of their role is opening those doors, those connections, because just applying for grants or sending letters, it usually goes unanswered unless you have somebody. It's like applying for a job, right? Unless you can have somebody walk your resume over to somebody connected with a hiring manager. So that is something that we're considering. We, you know, ultimately, you know, we would love to have, you know, a newly diagnosed millionaire family that helps. Yes, a celebrity connection. Absolutely. Or a celebrity that you know, somehow has a passion. You know, people always think, oh, you know, all you have to do is send, you know, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Can't, like, or, you know, some connection. But ultimately, you know, people that are philanthropically minded, they probably have their causes, you know, that are close to them already decided. But somehow, if you're able to share your story and somehow, you know, get that information to them and have them, you know, develop a passion for that, that'd be great. But that's it goes down to connections.
Yeah. I'd also say the YMCA is a very big organization, but every YMCA is its own corporation. On our boards of directors, we used to have a main corporation and then branches. Every branch board member was responsible for $1,500 a year donation. Every corporate board member was responsible for $5,000 a year. In addition to their contribution, they were responsible to go get an equal to donation. So a lot of non-for-profits use their connections and their board members as their foundation money for their fundraising. And then the balance of it, we were always responsible to get by raising money ourselves as a YMCA. So it's a non-for-profit that runs the same, whether you're this big or this big. But having board connections is a large part of how you get to the next level of fundraising.
And I will add to that, you know, so this weekend we announced, I think it was 5 projects that we're investing in. You know, so we do have the opportunity sometimes to leverage the connections and make potentially like smaller seed investments to projects that won't necessarily have a big end result for us specifically, but turn it into a project that could potentially be funded by, like, NIH, get bigger grant money for NIH. And that happened with the collaboration with Homology and Amy Ramsey's lab. So ultimately, it wasn't necessarily our money that we invested, but we invested our time into making those connections and those partnerships happen that turned into, I think it was like a $2 million grant. Am I right? So, you know, we can sometimes do a lot with just our time or input. You know, with GRIN Therapeutics, we were able to write a letter of endorsement for the FDA to get their clinical trial started. So that's, you know, again, that's investment in our our time, that didn't necessarily take our money, but we're able to, invest our time into furthering the research that way as well.
Another thing I would say is, don't be afraid to ask friends and family, not for money, but who do you know?
Yes.
Who do you know? That's an investment in an introduction. Maybe someone knows an individual who could, even if they're not the person who can move you forward, they know someone who might be able to, or they know someone who can get you to someone who could. So finding those connections can be invaluable in moving us forward in other ways, as well as fundraising.
Yeah, that's a great point. So more of a soft ask. Sometimes if I know somebody that I don't necessarily want to ask them for money, maybe I approach it as, hey, I did this for our Giving Tuesday campaign. Was I personally knew there was a project that was at risk for not being funded, that would, I believe, would be more beneficial for Brett. I asked my network, like, hey, could you help me make this happen? Or do you know somebody that you can connect? Who do you know? Like, instead of, if you don't feel comfortable asking them directly for funding, maybe approaching it as, hey, I've got this on my mind. Do you know anybody that I should contact? So
many law firms, all of us know some lawyer somewhere, many law firms, especially those who deal in fiduciary responsibility, they represent people who represent foundations. So sometimes if you ask a friend who's an attorney, do they know anyone who might be looking for an investment in a non-for-profit? They could have somebody. Financial advisors sometimes have people who are looking for places to put their money at the end of the year. So it's not always about who you ask, it's about who you ask, who they know.
Just going back to, I think you've mentioned that sometimes money can come as a surprise from people when you're not expecting it. And that did happen after I'd sent through the money that we'd raised from the wine. I was sitting at a work Christmas function, and all the speeches, and I was getting a bit bored. And then the social club president got up and he started talking, and he said that one of these social club members had raised this money and the situation had changed for whatever they'd raised it for. And I was still just looking around, and they said, and so we've decided to donate it to Emmy and her family and and I just about had to pick myself up. I haven't even been working there that long. It was amazing. And so, yeah, so that went through as well. But unfortunately, the exchange rate really made it all a lot of fun.
I wanted to add also, just getting back to the peer-to-peer. For me personally, I found, I do the sharing of the post sharing on social media, but I personally have found an email to be the most effective, and crafted a kind of an end of year letter with a campaign, a video compilation of all of Brett's therapies that he was working on throughout the year, and sent that embedded in an email. And email has been the most successful, I think, because social media is so easy to miss, and you're not directing it at one person versus an email that is directed at one person.
I think the social media hits a crowd and an age group, and I think the emails would be better for my parents to send out to their friends where they don't have Instagram or Facebook. So I think that's a great point, because I think we only did the social media exactly sorry, I forgot your name. Caitlin. Yep. Just like you, our daughter was born 2020. We were diagnosed when she was 1. And so last year was our first Get Moving for GRIN. And we shortly before the Get Moving for GRIN, we started an Instagram page called Aria's Melody, just talking about her birth and how everything was fine. And then at this age, just the stages, what kind of we went through. And then at a year, she was diagnosed, and this is what we're now doing. And then that was all in June. And then July was the start for Get Moving for GRIN. And we posted the page and the link to on Instagram, the link to the website where people can donate. And again, it was fresh news, 2020, like COVID baby. Not many have met her, and we're Italian, huge families. Like we have, just like you guys, large support there. But other than the family, not a lot have known about Aria and her condition, and we were still learning. Like this was really fresh for us, but it was so we had to keep upping our our target, because it was insane how much attention we were getting. And then small little groups would actually go off and do their own little things. We had a friend of ours who does a golf charity every year for a child who needs a certain surgery, and he had leftover funds from that, so he gave a good 1,500 there. And then another friend who was his parents were selling the furniture from their cottage, and all the proceeds went to Aria. So it was really cute, and the kids were selling lemonade. It was just like, it was so beautiful, because it just like it was like a tree, and there's all these little branches where we were getting a little bit more. And but to your point, it's really hard to beat, because that was our first year, and we raised 12,000, and that was amazing. But like now this year, the pressure's on. Like how do we get that or more? And so we were chatting really quickly with Keith yesterday, and he's from Toronto, we're from Toronto, and we're thinking of, physically doing a walk like in a park in Toronto, and like I feel like a lot of people will benefit from actually physically seeing Aria, and like being in the environment with her, and like having a balloon animal making guy, a face painter, like making it very interactive and fun, but to give back, like just like your wine. Like, so yes, there's a ticketed price or whatever it may be. We haven't thought that much. We haven't got to all those little details, but I feel easier selling that ticket for $100 or $50, whatever it is, because you're going to get lunch, you're going to get a face painter, you're going to get a balloon. All these things will cost, but we're hoping sponsors, and we have some family who have companies who will donate or sponsor certain things. So we're hoping that would cover that plus some, and then we can maybe get to the same number. But yeah, it's hard, like just thinking of something every year. But I think the theme is there, and we just have to, for us anyways, I think that's going to be our yearly thing. But we only do the June one as well. We don't, yeah, it gets kind of for us anyways, but.
Hi, I'm Caitlin's husband, Miles' dad. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about even the lacrosse thing that we did, and talk about like the branching out and how that really starts to stem. It may not have gone very far, but we did have even just one particular guy who took an interest, read up on it, had he just seemed interested in it. I don't know if it was based on our story. Maybe it was the connection with, excuse me, Caitlin's sister. But that was like a $500 donation. That may have ended up being almost half of what we made, but that could continue to be something larger if he was to get on an email chain or something where that could go on beyond that. So now, for the next event or something, yeah, this is terrible. I get so jittery talking in front of people. I'll get better with it, but anyways, she's just laughing at me. That's why I'm pointing at him. No, but it might break it up. So those things are important to do, because you may not see them immediately, but you'll see them throughout the future, and you never know what that particular person's connection may be. And a lot of these people, another thing I was going to mention is when you find a pocket of money per se, is that can grow. These people can start to promote your interest to others and kind of help you feed that next level of people. Everyone in certain tiers might be looking for those donation spots or donation areas where they can deposit their money as well. And so they may be able to promote it from there. It's just about not like limiting your thoughts to like, well, I'm only getting this small group. It can really stem out. And it will just take time.
And the one thing I was going to say is, I know CureGRIN, or sends an email and then a postcard for a thank you, but we handwrite thank yous to everybody that donates to us. And it takes forever, but I want them to understand that, like, I do really appreciate it. And I think that kind of adds to it. And I think that's sometimes why we get the other donation, or maybe on Giving Tuesday or whatever it is, they do think of us because we are trying to make sure we do say thank you, because we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will add to that, for people that do use our peer-to-peer, not so much for Facebook or Instagram, that we don't have the data, but if you ask us, we can download the list of your donors that you can get their email or their address to.
Yeah, there's kind of a rule in fundraising that you should touch your donors about 7 times a year. I write, like Caitlin, I write a thank you as if I can track down an address, because sometimes the donations come from my niece's friend that she worked with 3 years ago. But if I can find a name to send it to, I send everybody a thank you note. And the thank you note has a picture of Tristan, and it has, you know, a little bit of a touch. As things happen with CureGRIN, Keith's message the other day about what was going on, I send that to people by email, by Facebook, by Instagram, anyway, I forward it on and I say, look what's happening with CureGRIN. This is so exciting. This is where our money's going. Without asking them for any money, just letting them know, once again, we're still here, we're still waiting, and this is what's the excitement that's happening, and this is how we're getting closer. Yeah, it does.
Tell them your little Christmas card tip.
Oh, on the back of my Christmas card, you know how you get a Christmas card and it has the pictures on the front and it says Merry Christmas and it has your name. On the back of the card, I put CureGRIN and Tristan's website on it, so that anybody who has money left at the end of the year that they want to donate can send it to CureGRIN.
One thing I wanted to bring up that we do at our nonprofit for our clients, it's just, you know, the annual fundraisers and the major fundraisers always take precedent by all means, but you can't underestimate who you might meet in line one day getting coffee, or my older brother met someone on a plane and they ended up being a CEO of a major company. So we provide them with business cards, and you can make business cards on Vistaprint for nothing, 250 business cards. You can get them, put a QR code, just carry them with you. And it's just such a natural thing to be having conversations. And you're not even making an ask, but you can put a picture, put a QR code. You're always having that. Yeah. Finding out more, fundraising, making a donation. You have no idea who you're going to be having a conversation with day to day. So it's just a very easy way to always have it in your pocket.
You know, what's fundraising like in your country?
We don't have we don't really have a culture like you have over here when it comes to fundraising. It is done, but to a limited extent. What I decided to do, I'm a business owner on the consulting side, and we dedicate 10% of our profits to goals, and we also take a lot of time in selecting that ourselves, so the money flows directly into what we believe would be good for the community. Maybe also, said I'm in business. In business, you want to make profit. Profit is either more sales or less cost. And there's one thing I think that strikes me when I look at the overall community, and that is that to some extent, the money that's generated is not always spent in the most efficient way. I'm not talking about the money that CureGRIN raises, but when I just look at the industry in general, you see multiple parties doing research, and it's not always coordinated. That could also be an area where we can improve, because when 2 or 3 parties are working on the same research, it's good to have different perspectives, but I would rather have one perspective right now that we improve 5 years from now, perhaps. Also, when it's when you look at the cost, for example, for a functional analysis, it's a huge difference between the US and the cost in Europe, or the Spanish team in particular. Yeah, I think that those areas might also be good for us to look at overall. On one hand, you need money coming in, but on the other hand, you also have to see that we achieve our goals by focusing where the money goes, and also, maybe stimulate those people that spend the money to do that as effective as possible.
Wow, you've been around this for a lot of years. Words of wisdom.
Oh, that would be words of wisdom. But to bring it back to practical ground level, I went from corporate science back to teaching science, and I taught at a private boys' school in New Jersey, and they would have, they had uniforms and all that good stuff, and they would have dress down Fridays. And it was for, and the kids would pay $5 or whatever it is, and they could wear, what they would like to wear. And they started doing it for Trey, for GRIN. So, even that little bit, you have, a big enough school, sometimes they would get $3,500, $3,600. And it was just, there's no middleman or anything, right to GRIN. So something as simple as, and you're not really moving a product or something tangible per se, but the kids enjoy wearing their street clothes or, whatever. And, it's a small donation for most of the kids there. And what I did, we had posters made up, with Trey and Little, and I, in my classes, they had a question, hey, Mr. Mullen, what's this thing with Trey? And, and I was explaining what was happening, and they were kind of interested. And even on parent teachers night, some of the parents would come up and say, oh, I heard about your son. And, and there you start to expand your base, and I never knew who, was going to talk to someone else. But, that's something on a, as I said, on a real local level that could expand even more so. So, and we had, we had like a beef and beer and an auction.
We had more special events.
Yeah, we had special events.
They're so exhausting.
Yeah.
It's easier to ask for money, as much as I hate asking for money, than to do a lot of little special events.
Right. Yeah, that was, again, it was having the connections, because we had nieces that worked at, I think it was Reebok.
Adidas.
And Adidas. So they were able to get sports equipment in, and, T-shirts, and our Sunday, and he was drawing different connections, and you had a place where we had that. It was years ago, but they had special rates, and they would donate this, that, and the other thing. If you wanted to rent the hall, it was for special rate if you're fundraising. So things like that you could always look for. But the thing at our school, shout out to St. Augustine's Prep, they were happy to do it. It's in line with the Christian background and things like that of giving and helping the family. So that was, I kind of look forward to it every year. So that was it.
So speaking of events, Austin's Purpose has been a big supporter, and they've been a past board member as well. But, he does his own really unique events with his own network of friends and family. He's a retired police officer, and does motorcycle runs. He does cigar nights. So, anything can be a fundraiser. In fact, we have a fundraising toolkit that has examples of different, it doesn't have to be our campaign. In fact, it doesn't even have to be within our time. We are within the time of the campaigns. You can do a campaign at any time of the year. And in fact, Tristan's page is set up as his own campaign, 25 days of Tristan when he was turning 25. And so it just has like a unique image, and it has unique content on it. Heather, before she became a board member, we did a campaign page specifically for GRIA, GRI Amazing. Yeah. So, and then we have, we have a grandmother in UK I talked about at the award ceremony that sells plants and jam and with a harp ceremony all together. Like, how creative is that? So, everybody has to work within their own comfort zone. And
no amount is too small. I mean, our GRIN family is growing. If you have 100 people and they can each only raise $250 in an event, that's $2,500, and that's not that's not anything to snub your nose at. If you have friends who can give $10, if you get 100 friends who can give $10, that's $1,000. My nieces and nephews, I have a lot of nieces and nephews. My nieces and nephews might give $20, but I've got 40 of them. So, they feel good because when they pull their money together, on Tristan's page, you'll see it says cousins, and the cousins all put money together. They gave $500. So, it's not the amount, it's the thought and the kindness of people that really counts.
Well, I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. This has been it's really cool to see get the tidbits from everybody else, what everybody else is doing. But thank you for participating. I think we're gonna go back to the main session just to do a wrap up, and then we're gonna
thank y'all.
Thank you.